After taking a look at Sonic 1, I realized that while it's a good game, Sonic 1 is flawed in some areas. Sega had created their mascot, but they still didn't know how to design levels for him. While he had some good levels like Green Hill Zone and Starlight Zone, he also had some awful levels, and I think it's important to establish what I think makes a good Sonic level. You should be able to go fast in some areas. This creates spectacle. Spectacle is that feeling of amazement when you watch something happen. Spectacle is that feeling of, whoa, this is cool. Spectacle is a good thing if used properly, but it needs to be balanced out by a bit of platforming. This platforming could be basic jumps, or it could be having to pay attention to make skillful jumps to take shortcuts. And the level themes need to be interesting. A level could have good design, but the bland theme can drag it down quite a bit. Sonic 1 only pulled this off once with the Green Hill Zone, which is still used as nostalgia bait for a good reason. It's fantastic to play and learn. But with Sonic 2, Sega got a chance at redemption. They can make a Sonic game that fixes a lot of these flaws. So did they do it? Well, before we find out, let's take a look at the development history of Sonic 2. Sonic 1 was a massive success, establishing Sega a new mascot. So yeah, that sadly means Alex Kidd was pushed to the side. So with Sonic 1 being a massive success, of course Sega wanted a sequel. Yuji Naka, the creator of Sonic, quit Sega though. Thankfully, everyone's favorite Mark Cerny had helped found Sega Technical Institute and met with Yuji Naka. Yuji Naka joined Sega Technical Institute, and they eventually got to work on Sonic 2. Sonic 2 had plenty of content cut during development, such as the Desert or Sand Theme Zone, Genocide City Zone, Wood Zone, Ocean Wind Zone, a ton of other zones as shown in this world map, and possibly the most famous cut zone from a Sonic game, Hidden Palace Zone, which was later remade for the Sonic 2 mobile port that Sega should totally bring to console. A lot of these zones could have been interesting, like look at that Wood Zone concept art, it could have been amazing. Genocide City Zone would later be reworked into the third act of Metropolis Zone, though it is assumed that some changes were made, such as changing the color palette to be similar to Metropolis Zone's color palette. Sonic 2 released on a day that Sega called Sonic Tuesday, well except in Japan, where it was released a couple days early. It's pretty cool that Sega tried to do an international release in the 90s. Just like Sonic 1, Sonic 2 received a Master System and Game Gear version, but today we'll be focusing on the main version that everyone remembers, the Sega Genesis release, which was released on November 24th, 1992. I'll primarily be playing and discussing the version on the Sega Genesis Mini, unless I specify otherwise. Personally, I was first introduced to this game when I was 7 and played it on Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection on Xbox 360. It was an amazing collection with a ton of Sega Genesis games. Like, there are so many franchises it introduced me to, like Vector Man and Classic Sonic. I never actually got past Chemical Plant Zone though. Don't worry, I actually beat the game this time for the video. Well, I'm already over a page into the script, so let's just get into the game. Sonic 2 starts off with Sonic running fast, and then Sonic and a new face pop up. The new face is Tails, and I'm sure most of you already know who he is. He's Sonic's friend, and he can be controlled by another player. I'll be playing by myself though, so let's just get into the game with the first stage, Emerald Hill Zone. Emerald Hill Zone is a great start to the game, but at the same time, it's a worse start than Sonic 1 had. Let's start off with what makes this a great start. The colors here are vibrant and overall pleasing to the eyes. One of my major complaints of Sonic 1 was the poor color selection. That game badly needed more variety in its color choice. Green Hill Zone felt like one of the few zones in Sonic 1 that wasn't bland to look at. Sonic 2 starting with a bright and colorful zone gives me hope that maybe the rest of the game will maintain this idea of having gorgeous color choice with vibrancy in it. Another massive positive of Emerald Hill Zone is how it takes advantage of Sonic's new spin dash. In Sonic 2 they finally introduced the spin dash, where you hold down the D-pad and hold a button, then release that button to be given a burst of momentum. There's a reason why the spin dash is an iconic part of Sonic's moveset. It's essential to any Sonic game. Instead of having to run around to gain a bit of momentum, the spin dash can allow you to get that small burst of momentum to help you get up a slope. The spin dash allows you to move way quicker overall in Sonic 2. The level design takes advantage of this usually. The game itself is way faster too as far as structure goes. Most zones are only 2 acts compared to Sonic 1 having 3 acts per zone. Sonic 2 overall is a way faster game, and I think the next zone is a great showcase of that. But let's get back to Emerald Hill Zone. I called it a worse start than Sonic 1's Green Hill Zone, because it just isn't as memorable or enjoyable in my opinion. Green Hill Zone is just a way more enjoyable stage to breeze through. There's so many shortcuts, and just you can take advantage of speed in so many places in the stage, and it's great. While with Emerald Hill Zone I can still breeze through it, it just doesn't feel as much fun. It doesn't feel like this grand opening. It just feels like a stage in the Sonic game, in my opinion. Green Hill Zone also has something that Emerald Hill Zone lacks, in my opinion. Sonic 1 was a big deal at the time. Sonic 1 was competing with 8-bit platformers, so when you compare how Sonic 1 was momentum based and you could speed up, that's just so much more impressive. It adds a bit of a wow factor. You combine that with going up these slopes or ramps or whatever you want to call them, and then being shot out of a tunnel into the air. This is just so much more impressive than Emerald Hill Zone. Emerald Hill Zone's boss is also just kind of way too simple and basic. You can just constantly hit it without thought. At least with Green Hill Zone's boss fight, you have to sometimes swap platforms. The final reason that Emerald Hill Zone is overall a weaker opening is that it just isn't as memorable. Green Hill Zone just has a way more interesting, surreal look to it, which makes it more memorable. It sticks in your mind. And then you just have Emerald Hill Zone, which kind of just feels like a grassy place. And the music in Green Hill Zone is way more memorable and iconic, and overall just way better sounding in my opinion. Here's one song. Here's the other song. I bet you already know that the first one is Green Hill Zone, and the second one is Emerald Hill Zone. I probably didn't even have to tell you that. Emerald Hill Zone isn't a bad zone though. It just isn't as great of an opening in my opinion. So the next zone on the list is Chemical Plant Zone. I'd argue that Chemical Plant Zone is one of the most iconic Sonic stages besides Green Hill Zone. So many people look back at Chemical Plant Zone with a ton of fondness. This was where 7-year-old me got stuck. Why is that? Chemical Plant Zone has a stupid block section where you're underwater, and if you aren't careful, Sonic loses air. So then the music gets really tense, and 7-year-old me got stressed easily, so the tense music made me feel pressured until... Holy I killed Sonic! Yeah, something about the drowning death always feel weird compared to when Sonic just gets hit by spikes, or by an enemy. Also, sometimes you can get crushed by the blocks, but honestly that didn't make me feel as bad. Nowadays I can breathe through that segment no problem, but as a kid, I could rarely get past it. When I did get past it, I usually died at the boss fight. Other than that, this zone is fun. Sonic 2 is a way faster game than Sonic 1. In Sonic 1, you could go fast, but you weren't going insane speeds. Actually, here's a good comparison. In Sonic 1, you go the fastest in Green Hill Zone in my opinion. And here's a clip that shows a bit of that spectacle of speed at its peak. In Sonic 2, the spectacle of speed is everywhere, and Chemical Plant is an amazing example of this. Take a look at this clip. Speed is Sonic 2's best weapon and greatest strength. Sonic 2's speed means that Sega can show you Sonic 2 and say, look how much cooler and faster this is compared to Mario World. Remember that iconic Sonic 1 commercial where it points out how much faster Sonic 1 is?
Look at these radical colors, huh? Wow, Sonic's fast too.
Well, Sonic 2 finally reaches that potential. You can point at Sonic 2 and say how much faster it is, and I think Chemical Plant is the perfect demonstration of this. Chemical Plant lets you go fast and doesn't slow you down with lame gimmicks, and that is perfect, but it also balances it out with some nice platforming. I wish I could say the same about the rest of the game though, but I'll get back to that claim later. So now I've told you about how Chemical Plant is a spectacular display of speed. Why did I only call it fun and not perfect? Well, the block area I mentioned earlier slows down the speed and momentum of the stage a ton. Platforming's good, but only when it doesn't consistently slow you down. There's a part of the stage right before the boss where the ground can easily flip and you'll die because of that, and that's pretty lame. The boss here isn't really that fun. Instead of waiting, I usually just prefer to tank the hits and get it over with because honestly, I don't care about my score in a Sonic game. Also, the gray color scheme makes sense, but I mean, I wish they used like more variety in grays here. I do love the background of the stage though. The background of the stage is gorgeous. The next stage is Quack Ruin, and honestly, I dislike this stage. But before I get into why I dislike the stage, let's talk about the positives. Well, I like the name just sounds cool. Sometimes a stage can be really fun when I get to go fast or do some platforming. Music is good too, but the music for pretty much the entire game is good. The stage can look gorgeous sometimes. Also, the boss is decent. I'd consider it an improvement over what we've seen so far. There's a bit more strategy to it, and you can't just tank hits. While a boss fight does sometimes feel like a waiting game of just sitting around while you wait for Robotnik to do something, it isn't the worst thing in the world. Now let's talk about the negatives. First, like I said earlier, the stage can be really fun when I get to go fast or do some fun platforming, but the game also likes to randomly throw arrows and enemies at you without you being able to do much to prevent it on your first time playing the stage. Quack Ruin feels like it is constantly and consistently punishing me for going fast, which wouldn't be a problem except Sonic 2 wants the player to go fast. Sonic 2 adds tools to the player's moveset to allow you to go fast, so it's counterintuitive to just say, yeah, well, you should be going fast here, but at the same time enemies are going to randomly jump out at you. It just overall makes the design of the stage and the gameplay of Sonic 2 constantly clash. Does it want you to go slow? Does it want you to go fast? I wish I had the answer to that, because I don't. Aquatic Ruin also adds in water in this stage, and apparently if you're good at the game, you can avoid the water. Which, you know what? That's a genius idea, so why wasn't it on my list of positives? Well, because the game will throw random arrows and enemies at you. You probably won't be able to avoid the water. You're going to get hit and lose your momentum, and probably fall in the water. Once you're inside the water, the stage is completely slowed down. Water levels in Sonic can be fun. It's been proven with stages in the games that come after Sonic 2, such as Sonic 3 and Sonic Mania's Hydrocity Zone in Sonic Generations version of Seaside Hill. I get the team was still inexperienced with Sonic level design since it was still early into the franchise, but plenty of other Sonic 2 levels show that they improved a ton after Sonic 1. So why is there a water level that is of the same quality as most Sonic 1 stages? So the core level design is fundamentally flawed, which is probably the biggest problem I have with the Aquatic Ruin Zone. Part of my other problems, these two are significantly smaller than the level design being flawed, but the scrolling of these leaves just feels so off and weird to look at, and the boss fight being a waiting game isn't awful like I mentioned earlier, but I wish there was a better indication of where the arrow is going to come from, besides which side of the map does Robotnik hit. Maybe the next stage will redeem Aquatic Ruin Zone, because I hear so much positive praise for this zone. Casino Night is the next zone, and it's just average. That's right, I said it. I think it's average, honestly. But let's give it a fair chance. I love the theming and music. Something about casino themes, carnival themes, and nighttime themes is so appealing to me. So it's nice to see a stage that combines the idea of a casino theme and nighttime theme. Music perfectly complements this atmosphere of the zone. The gimmick of Sonic being in this machine is hilarious, and a cool way to make use of the idea that Sonic is sometimes a ball. The zone also sometimes lets you go fast, which I enjoy. The boss fight is chaotic but also enjoyable. It switches up the formula of just sitting there waiting to hit Robotnik. Instead, you end up doing a lot of bouncing around, which can feel annoying at times when you aren't able to land hits. When you're able to actually land hits and somewhat control where you're going, it can be enjoyable. The zone definitely isn't flawless though. Casino Night Zone certainly loves to slow you down. You have to hold down a button for these springs to charge them up instead of just having them instantly launch you for some reason, which wouldn't slow down your momentum, and level design is just claustrophobic overall. These blocks halt your momentum, which brings you to an abrupt stop. Then you're sitting there waiting for them to move. While I don't think Sonic games need to be all speed, in fact, I believe Sonic games shouldn't be all speed, because that takes away the reward and thrill of speeding through the level at insane speeds. But if you're going to slow me down, at least make it for some platforming instead of just having me sit there and wait, or just completely killing my momentum. Well, Sonic 2 has kind of left me mixed. While it is better than Sonic 1, Emerald Hill Zone and Chemical Plant Zone were definitely really enjoyable, but Aquatic Ruin Zone and Casino Night Zone just haven't lived up to, or gone close to that same level of quality for me. Well, thankfully Hilltop Zone exists. Hilltop Zone is just a fun stage with some cool ideas. You have these seesaws you use to get to higher places, you also have to escape the rising lava. The zone also encourages going fast, but balances going fast with some intense platforming above lava. While the graphics are pretty much just the same as Emerald Hill Zone, they are pleasing to look at. Hilltop Zone is just an enjoyable and inoffensive zone. Next up we have Mystic Cave Zone, which doesn't do much right or wrong. It has a unique color palette and theme, the music is great, and level design is decent. Level design is just inoffensive though, and kind of plays it safe. There aren't any high speed moments, fun platforming, or great gimmicks, but none of it is bad enough to irritate me. The same thing applies to the boss fight. In fact, I sometimes forget what Mystic Cave's boss fight is because it's just okay. There's this pit of spikes though, which is dumb. Why not just have a bottomless pit that instantly kills the player? Everything I said for Mystic Cave Zone applies to Oil Ocean Zone. Oil Ocean Zone has a decent enough theme and decent music. Level design isn't that awesome or awful. and the gimmicks don't stick out. The only memorable part of Oil Ocean Zone is the boss fight because it's this cool idea of dodging lasers from the tentacles. I enjoyed this boss fight a lot, and it might be my favorite one of the entire game. It's time to talk about Metropolis Zone. Why am I so pessimistic about that? Listen, you know why I'm not excited and negative towards talking about this zone. It sucks. Plain and simple. It's also 3 acts because Genocide City was turned into Act 3 of Metropolis. I can already hear someone typing, Fuse, you're just going to be overly critical like everyone else is. Why try giving this zone a fair chance? I went in and I cleared my expectations. All I got instead was an unfun and tedious zone. You have these wall C stars and they're really annoying, and you also have these screw elevators. These screw elevators have the problem of when you first use it, there's spikes waiting at the top, so you have to be careful. But then every other time, there's no spikes there. You don't really have to worry as much, you just have to make sure you're not stupid enough to get squished. That's inexcusable and bad game design. When designing a level gimmick or an entire level, you should have it gradually get harder, by giving the player a big threat when they first encounter the gimmick, and later on not including this big threat or hazard. The difficulty curve is the opposite of what it should be. Nothing about this zone works for me. It just feels lazy and like filler. Speaking of things that feel lazy and like filler, the entire endgame. Sky Chase Zone is boring and feels like a lame attempt to add variety to the game. Winged Fortress is okay, but at the same time, I would be fine with it being cut from the game. Head to this one jump that's stupidly annoying and cheap. It just feels like a cheap way to kill the player, so they eventually get game over and they have to replay the game. The concept of the zone is cool, it just needs more work. The final boss is awful, I hate it. You get no rings and you go against the silver and metal version of Sonic with 0 rings. You die in 1 hit. Do you see the problem with that? So once you get through that entire fight, what do? You go against Eggman. This boss fight has bad collision detection. But then you beat the game, now it's over, and I couldn't be any happier because this game nosedived in quality. If you're a Sonic fan, I bet you've noticed I haven't talked about getting the Chaos Emeralds yet. Why is that? That's because I didn't care. You get some rings, and then when you pass the checkpoint, wow look, you teleported to a half pipe. I see so many people defend the half pipe, but honestly my problem is that it's just so boring to me. I'd rather play Sonic 1 special stages, because at least those are a weird experience. With Sonic 2 special stages, I just get bored. It's cool they attempted 3D here, but it just doesn't work. I don't find myself having fun. Instead, I find myself regretting playing it. And in fact, by not playing the special stages, I think that actually increased my view of Sonic 2 and made me look more positively on the game. Because then it's like, well, I didn't have to go through all those special stages. I got to play the game in a fun way that suits me. I'm probably going to get hate for how hard I beat up Sonic 2 at the end, but don't let my complaints deceive you. I did enjoy my time with Sonic 2. Will I replay it? I already have multiple times while making this video. Not even to get footage, but just for fun. It's an enjoyable game, it's fun to see how far I can get in a single run without saving or using save states. Though whenever I replay it, I usually end up stopping after Oil Ocean, because everything after that is unenjoyable in my opinion. There's some other parts of the game that really never fit into the review earlier when I was taking a look at each stage, and I want to talk about them, so let's discuss them now. For example, the graphics are gorgeous and the color choice is sublime. In my Sonic 1 review, I criticized the game heavily for its dull color choice. With Sonic 2, Sega fixed that problem. The color choice in Sonic 2 is spectacular. Emerald Hill Zone is bright and the colors pop extraordinarily well. Casino Night's colors fit the theme and aesthetic, and honestly, Casino Night is one of my favorite looking 16-bit classic Sonic stages. Hilltop Zone is spectacular. It looks like a recolored Emerald Hill Zone, but the blue and green color palette is the definition of perfection. Mystic Cave Zone's colors are vibrant and they pop quite beautifully. The music of this game is truly something special. The Sonic series has always had great soundtracks, and Sonic 2 is another example of that. I know earlier I said Emerald Hill Zone's music isn't as iconic as Green Hill Zone's music, but Emerald Hill Zone's music is still lovable. It gives off a bright and happy vibe which fits Emerald Hill Zone perfectly. Chemical Plant Zone has a nice song too. Casino Night Zone easily has the best song in the entire game. Music fits the casino theme, it's just overall a bop. Earlier I mentioned how Hidden Palace Zone was cut from the original release of Sonic 2, but added back in for the mobile port. Well, I have a smartphone, so why not take a look at it? Remember how Mystic Cave Zone has that pit of spikes? Well, they made that pit become the entrance to Hidden Palace Zone. That is genius and a hilarious Easter egg. It really adds meaning to the hidden and Hidden Palace Zone. The zone itself has a really fun and enjoyable vibe. Something about how it's underground and acts as like this hidden world was great. There's plenty of brown here, but also plenty of brighter colors to help add some visual flair and balance out the brown. The background is gorgeous too. The enemies also help sell this concept of it being underground because of the dinosaurs here. There's a really fun sense of speed with how quickly you're moving around. The zone has water sections, but they're so quick and simple that I didn't mind them. It's a quick and simple zone that only lasts one act. This is the best way to add content when you port a game. It fits perfectly into the main game, it's easily avoidable, and it takes a section of the original game that served no meaningful purpose and gives it an actual purpose. The fight against Eggman was pretty lame though. Eggman himself looks cool in this fight, and the area you fight him in looks awesome. It feels like an epic battle to fight in, but the place itself is tedious and anticlimactic compared to how fun the rest of the zone was. I just wish you could play it on console, because the Sonic 2 mobile port fixes my biggest problem with the special stages, by making them easier to see. It also allows you to play as Tails and Knuckles, and while ROM hacks already allow for that, it's a cool bonus to have in an official release. This mobile version also includes full 60 FPS and widescreen support, which is spectacular. If it was on console or PC, this would easily be the best version of the game. Anyway, let's get back to talking about the original Genesis version of Sonic 2. What Sonic 2 pulls off, it pulls off extremely well. When Sonic 2 stumbles, it doesn't just have a little stumble. It stumbles hard and crashes into the wall, and breaks some of its bones. Does that summarize most games? Yeah, pretty much, but I think that applies to Sonic 2 extremely well, because it really is an unbalanced game. A lot of great, but also a lot of bad. Would I consider it better than Sonic 1? Yeah. Sonic 2 felt like Sega starting to understand how to design and market a Sonic game. You can tell in marketing that they were aware they had something special. Sonic 1 was just faster than your average platformer, but with Sonic 2, they upgraded that and made it insanely fast. Earlier in the video, I established what I mean when I say spectacle. That's because Sonic 2 is all about the spectacle. Don't get me wrong, it has a lot of solid platforming, but the spectacle of seeing Sonic run at high speeds is this game's biggest selling point. And then Sonic 3 and its famous second half known as Sonic and Knuckles, but combined to make the perfect evolution of the 2D Sonic formula. Or at least that's what I would say if Sonic CD wasn't released. Yep, Sonic CD is the next stop on the Sonic review train when I cover Sonic CD sometime this year. So if you're interested in seeing what I think of the rest of the Sonic series, maybe subscribe. But for now, I'm Fuse. Thank you guys for watching. I'm signing out.